Dana Jenkins was 7 years old, but she was no ordinary 7-year-old. With her overactive imagination and a penchant for matchmaking, she was determined to transform her world into something straight out of a fairy tale, or as she liked to call it, Operation Happy Ever After. Her prime target? Her mom, Vicki Jenkins, a dedicated workaholic whose idea of romance was finding a typo-free advertisement tagline. Vicki wasn't always like this. Dana knew her mom used to laugh more, sing along to cheesy songs on the radio, and bake cookies without burning half the batch. But ever since Dana's dad passed away, leaving them in financial trouble, Vicki had thrown herself into her job at the ad agency. She had little time for anything else, especially love. But Dana? Dana had other plans. One Thursday afternoon, as Dana sat in music class, she watched her teacher, Mr. Taylor Briggs, strum his guitar. Mr. Briggs was cool in a grown-up kind of way. He wore plaid shirts, had a kind smile, and knew all the Disney songs by heart. He also had a sad, faraway look in his eyes sometimes, like her mom did when she thought no one was watching. Dana decided right then and there, Mr. Briggs and her mom were perfect for each other. That evening, as Vicki scrambled to finish a pitch for a new eco-friendly toothpaste campaign, Dana marched into the living room, holding a crayon drawing of a stick figure family. "Mom, I drew our future," she announced, waving the paper. "That's nice, honey," Vicki mumbled, barely looking up from her laptop. "What's this one about?" "It's you, me, and Mr. Briggs. He has a dog, so I added him too. His name is Rusty." Vicki blinked and finally looked up. "Mr. Briggs, your music teacher?" "Uh-huh. He's perfect for you. He likes music. You like music. Well, you used to before you got boring, and he has nice teeth." Vicki sighed, suppressing a smile. "Dana, I don't think your teacher is looking for a new family." "But you are," Dana said, her hands on her hips. "You can't fool me, Mom. You're lonely, and I can fix that." "Dana, trust me," Dana grinned. "I have a plan." The first part of Dana's plan involved subtlety, or what she thought was subtlety. At parent-teacher conferences, Dana made sure Vicki was dressed in her best blouse and insisted on staying 5 extra minutes so they could chat. Unfortunately, Vicki mostly asked boring questions about music sheets and practice schedules. Mr. Briggs, polite as ever, answered patiently but didn't seem to notice her mom's very professional blouse. Next, Dana tried to spice things up. For the school recital, she accidentally switched the program sheet so Vicki would end up sitting next to Mr. Briggs in the audience. It almost worked, until Vicki got a phone call from work and had to leave halfway through. "Mom," Dana huffed on the way home, "you ruined my plan." "Dana, sweetie, I'm not looking for a boyfriend." "But you need one." "And why do you think Mr. Briggs is the answer?" "Because he looks like a prince and you need someone to sing duets with." Dana wasn't about to give up. Dana's plan began taking shape one sunny Monday afternoon. While other kids at recess were trading snacks or chasing each other around the playground, Dana sat cross-legged with her best friend, Emma, plotting her mother's romantic future. "Mr. Briggs is perfect," Dana whispered, gesturing wildly with her juice box. "He's kind, he likes music, and he's lonely, just like Mom." Emma nodded solemnly as though they were discussing a top-secret mission. "What's your plan?" Dana grinned, a mischievous sparkle in her eyes. "Step 1, I'll make them meet outside of boring parent-teacher stuff. Step 2, get them to spend time together. Step 3, they fall in love. Happily ever after." That evening, Dana put step 1 into motion. She waited until Vicki came home, arms full of grocery bags and her work phone pressed to her ear. As soon as Vicki hung up, Dana pounced. "Mom, you have to come to the music showcase next week," she said, tugging at Vicki's arm. Vicki, who was already juggling 10 deadlines and a stack of proposals, looked skeptical. "Honey, I'm swamped. I don't know if I'll have time. But it's important. Mr. Briggs said it's going to be magical." Dana batted her eyelashes for good measure. Vicki sighed. She could never resist that look. "Fine, I'll try," Dana beamed. Step 1, complete. The night of the showcase arrived, and Dana made sure her mom wore her nicest blouse, one that hadn't seen the light of day since her last big presentation. As Mr. Briggs led the kids through their songs, Dana noticed her mom tapping her foot to the beat. When Taylor caught Vicki's eye and smiled, Dana's heart leapt. Step 2 was already in motion. Now, she just had to wait. Dana's plan to unite her mother and Mr. Briggs wasn't just a fleeting thought, it became her mission. The more she observed her music teacher, the more she saw how perfectly he'd fit into their lives. Mr. Briggs had a gentle way about him, but Dana noticed he seemed lonely. His smiles didn't always reach his eyes, and every now and then, when the class was particularly rowdy, he would glance at the window with a wistful expression, as though thinking of a life that could have been. Over the next week, Dana's plans began to escalate. She saw opportunities everywhere. At the parent-teacher conference, she orchestrated a long and awkward meeting, ensuring her mom and Mr. Briggs had to exchange more than just pleasantries. While Vicky asked practical questions about Dana's progress, Taylor caught himself noticing the little details. The way Vicky's eyes crinkled when she smiled, the quiet determination in her voice, and the faint scent of lavender she carried. When Dana later insisted that her mom attend the school's upcoming talent showcase, she made it sound like a life-or-death event. "You have to come, Mom. I'm singing, and Mr. Briggs said he needs all the parents to help set up. It's a rule." Vicky, busy as ever, hesitated. "Dana, honey, I've got so much work to do." "But it's important," Dana pleaded, using the puppy dog eyes she knew her mother couldn't resist. "You promised you'd come to more school stuff." Okay, Vicky relented, sighing. "I'll be there." The talent showcase was a bustling affair. Kids flitted about in costumes and uniforms, while parents shuffled chairs and tables into place. Dana took it upon herself to make sure her mom was paired with Mr. Briggs for setup duty. "Hi, Mr. Briggs," Dana chirped as she dragged her mom over. "This is my mom. She's here to help." Taylor smiled politely, his guitar slung over his shoulder. "Nice to see you again, Miss Jenkins." "Call me Vicky," she said, shaking his hand. "Thanks for putting up with Dana. She's, quite spirited." "I don't mind," Taylor said, glancing at Dana, who was beaming at the both of them. "She's a bright kid." As they worked side by side, arranging chairs and untangling fairy lights, Dana flitted around them like a determined Cupid, tossing compliments and hints like confetti. "My mom's really good at fixing things, you know," Dana said at one point. "She fixed our sink all by herself last week." Taylor chuckled. "Impressive." "And Mr. Briggs is really good at singing, Mom," Dana said, tugging on her sleeve. "You should ask him to sing something." "Dana," Vicky said, her cheeks turning pink, "stop pestering your teacher." "It's okay," Taylor said with a soft laugh. "Dana's just proud of you, Vicky." Vicky blinked, unused to hearing her first name from someone other than a colleague. For a moment, their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them, a shared understanding, a hint of curiosity. As the showcase ended and parents began to leave, Dana noticed something different. Her mom looked less tense, her shoulders more relaxed, and she was even smiling. A real smile, not the polite, distracted one she often wore. "That wasn't so bad," Vicky admitted as they walked to the car. "Told you," Dana said, swinging her backpack. "Mr. Briggs is nice, right?" Vicky laughed softly. "Yes, Dana, he's nice." The following week, Mr. Briggs sent home a note in Dana's backpack, thanking Vicky for her help at the showcase and suggesting they get coffee sometime to chat, strictly about Dana's musical progress, of course. Vicky stared at the note for a long moment, her heart doing an odd little flutter. She hesitated, unsure whether to respond. It had been years since she let anyone into her life. Was she ready? "Mom?" Dana said, peeking over her shoulder. "Are you going to write back?" "I don't know." Vicky trailed off. Dana grabbed a pen, scribbled, "Yes, she would love to," at the bottom of the note and shoved it into her mom's purse before running off. "Dana Jenkins," Vicky called, but her daughter's laughter echoed down the hall, leaving her standing there, holding the note and wondering if maybe, just maybe, Dana's overactive imagination wasn't such a bad thing after all. Dana, of course, took her mother's reluctant admission as a full green light to proceed with Operation Happy Ever After. The next morning at breakfast, while Vicky was distractedly sipping her coffee and skimming emails on her phone, Dana brought up her favorite topic. "So when are you going to see Mr. Briggs again?" she asked, crunching her cereal loudly for emphasis. Vicky glanced up, her brow furrowing. "Dana, it was just a school event. I'm not planning to see him again unless there's another music-related thing." "But he liked you," Dana insisted, pointing her spoon for emphasis. "I saw him smiling at you." "That's because I was helping with the chairs," Vicky replied, rolling her eyes. "He's your teacher, honey. That's it." "But—" "No buts, Dana." Vicky's tone was firm, though not unkind. "Now hurry up. You're going to be late for school." Dana sighed dramatically, but she wasn't deterred. She had learned long ago that adults needed a little push to see what was right in front of them. Later that day, in music class, Dana decided to test the waters with Mr. Briggs. "Do you like my mom?" she asked out of nowhere as the kids packed up their recorders. Taylor blinked, clearly caught off guard. "Your mom?" "Yeah. She helped with the showcase. She's super nice, right?" Taylor chuckled, adjusting the strap of his guitar case. "Your mom is nice, very helpful. Why do you ask?" Dana shrugged with a sly grin. "No reason." Taylor gave her a curious look, but didn't press further. Still, as the class cleared out, her words lingered in his mind. He remembered Vicky's smile, the way it lit up her face, even briefly, when she laughed at one of Dana's antics. It had been a long time since he'd noticed someone like that. Meanwhile, Dana wasn't letting up at home. Over dinner, she launched into a detailed monologue about how Mr. Briggs had complimented her singing in class. "He said I have great pitch, Mom, and I bet he'd say the same about you if you ever sang again." Vicky, mid-bite of spaghetti, gave her daughter a look. "Dana, what is with you and Mr. Briggs?" "I just think you'd be good together," Dana said matter-of-factly. "You both love music, you're both nice, and you're both kind of lonely." "Dana," Vicky said softly, setting down her fork. "You don't need to worry about me. I'm fine, sweetheart." "But are you happy?" Dana asked, her voice small but insistent. The question caught Vicky off guard. She didn't answer right away, and Dana, sensing the moment was over, returned to her spaghetti. But the question stayed with Vicky long after they cleared the table. The following week, when Dana brought home a note from Mr. Briggs about an upcoming recital, she couldn't resist adding her own flourish at the bottom. "P.S. My mom's lasagna is amazing. You should try it sometime." Vicky groaned when she saw the note but couldn't help laughing too. "Dana, you can't write things like that to your teacher." "Why not?" "It's true," Dana said, completely unapologetic. "And maybe he'll come over for dinner." "Not happening," Vicky said, though her cheeks flushed pink. "Nice try." But something about Dana's persistence and the warmth she'd seen in Taylor's smile made Vicky pause. For years, she'd kept her world small, focused only on work and raising Dana. Was it so bad to let someone new in, even just as a friend? When she finally wrote a reply to Taylor's note, she stopped short before signing off. After a moment's hesitation, she added, "P.S. Dana wasn't wrong about the lasagna." The following week, Taylor knocked on their door, holding a small bouquet of flowers he'd picked up at the farmer's market on a whim. Vicky opened the door, startled but smiling. "Mr. Briggs," she said, her tone a mix of surprise and amusement. "What brings you here?" "I figured it was only fair to test this world-famous lasagna for myself," he said with a grin, holding up the flowers. Dana left quite the impression. From the kitchen, Dana's voice rang out triumphantly. "I told you, Mom," Vicky shook her head, laughing despite herself. "Come in. But fair warning, the lasagna might be overrated." Taylor stepped inside, smiling warmly at her. "I'll be the judge of that." And for the first time in a long while, Vicky felt something stir in her chest, something light, hopeful, and completely unexpected. Taylor's presence at their dinner table felt surprisingly natural. As he sat across from Vicky, complimenting the lasagna with genuine enthusiasm, the walls she had carefully built around herself seemed to shift, if only slightly. Dana, thrilled with the progress of her master plan, took every opportunity to steer the conversation toward their shared interests. "Mr. Briggs, did you know my mom used to play the piano?" Dana said, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Vicky shot her a playful glare. "That was a long time ago, and I wasn't very good." "Modesty," Taylor said with a grin. "A telltale sign of someone who's actually talented. Do you still play?" "No," Vicky admitted, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "I haven't touched a piano in years. Life got complicated." Taylor nodded, his expression softening. "I get that. Music's been both a refuge and a reminder for me. Sometimes it's hard to separate the two." There was a quiet understanding in his words that made Vicky's chest tighten. She realized she wanted to ask him more, to understand the source of his sadness, but she hesitated, unsure if she had the right. Dana, however, had no such reservations. "Mom says you're lonely too," she announced, completely oblivious to the adult's startled expressions. "Dana!" Vicky gasped, mortified. "What? It's true," Dana said, shrugging. "I saw it in his eyes." Taylor laughed, a sound that was more genuine than Vicky had heard from him before. She's not wrong, he admitted. But loneliness isn't always a bad thing. It gives you time to reflect, to figure out what really matters. Vicky studied him for a moment, her guard lowering just a little more. And what have you figured out? That sometimes the things you think you've lost aren't gone forever, he said quietly. His gaze met hers, and for a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Over the weeks that followed, Taylor's visits became more frequent, though he always made it seem like Dana was the reason. He'd stop by to drop off sheet music or to help with an upcoming recital, but he and Vicky would inevitably find themselves lingering over coffee or tea, talking about everything from childhood memories to the challenges of parenting. Vicky found herself laughing more, the weight on her shoulders feeling a little lighter. Taylor, too, seemed to brighten in her presence, the faraway look in his eyes slowly replaced by something softer, warmer. Dana, of course, took all the credit. "You're welcome," she'd say smugly whenever she caught them sharing a laugh. One rainy Saturday, as the three of them sat on the couch watching an old Disney movie, Dana made another bold declaration. "Mr. Briggs should come with us to the park tomorrow," she said, curling up against her mom's side. "It's more fun with 3 people." Vicky hesitated. Taylor might have plans. "I'd love to," Taylor interrupted, his smile reassuring. "If it's okay with you, of course." Vicky looked at him, her heart doing that strange fluttery thing she still wasn't quite used to. Sure. Why not? The park outing was everything Dana had hoped for. Taylor chased her around the playground, pushed her on the swings, and even joined her in an impromptu game of tag. Vicky watched from a bench, a warm feeling blooming in her chest as she saw how naturally he fit into their little world. At one point, Taylor jogged over to her, slightly out of breath but grinning. "She's got the energy of 10 kids, he said, sitting down beside her. "Tell me about it," Vicky replied, laughing. "She's been like that since the day she learned to walk, always on the move, always dreaming." "She gets that from you, I think," Taylor said, his voice gentle. Vicky looked at him, surprised. "Me? I'm not exactly a dreamer these days." "You used to be, though, didn't you?" he asked, his eyes searching hers. "Dana talks about you like you're a superhero. She sees something in you that maybe you've forgotten about yourself." The word struck a chord deep within her. For so long, she'd been focused on surviving, on providing for Dana and keeping everything together. She hadn't allowed herself to think about what she wanted, what made her happy. "Maybe," she said softly. "But it's hard to remember who you were when life keeps throwing curveballs." Taylor nodded, his expression thoughtful. "I know the feeling, but sometimes it takes someone else to remind you." Their eyes met, and for the first time in years, Vicky felt the faintest glimmer of hope, not just for herself, but for the possibility of something new. As the months passed, Taylor became an integral part of their lives. He and Vicky continued to grow closer, their bond deepening with each shared laugh and quiet conversation. Dana was thrilled, though she made sure to remind them frequently that it was all thanks to her. One evening, after dinner, Taylor stayed behind to help Dana with her music homework, while Vicky worked on a last-minute project for her job. When Dana finally went to bed, Taylor lingered in the kitchen, washing dishes while Vicky finished up. "You don't have to do that," she said, glancing up from her laptop. "I don't mind," he replied, flashing her a smile. "Besides, you've got enough on your plate." Vicky closed her laptop, watching him for a moment. "You're really good with Dana. She adores you." "The feeling's mutual," he said, drying his hands. "She's an amazing kid. That's a testament to you, you know." "Thanks," Vicky said, her voice soft. "But I can't take all the credit. She's got her dad's spirit, too." Taylor walked over and leaned against the counter, his gaze steady. "You've done an incredible job, Vicky. I hope you know that." Her throat tightened at the sincerity in his voice. "I've just been trying to keep us afloat," she admitted. "Some days it feels like that's all I can do." "You've done more than that," he said. "You've built something beautiful." For a moment, they stood there in silence, the air between them charged with unspoken emotions. Finally, Taylor took a tentative step closer. "Vicky," he began, his voice low. "I know we've both been through a lot, and I don't want to overstep, but I care about you, about Dana, and I'd like to be a part of your lives if you'll let me." Vicky's heart raced as she looked into his eyes, seeing the vulnerability and hope in them. For so long, she'd been afraid to let anyone in, to risk the possibility of loss again. But Taylor wasn't asking for perfection or guarantees, just a chance. She smiled, her eyes glistening. "You already are." From that moment on, their relationship blossomed. Taylor became a steady presence in their lives, his warmth and kindness filling the spaces Vicky hadn't realized were empty. Together, they created new traditions: family movie nights, Sunday park visits, and spontaneous sing-alongs in the kitchen. For Dana, it was everything she dreamed of. Her mom was happier, lighter, and she had someone to share that happiness with. And Taylor? He found a sense of belonging he hadn't felt in years, a chance to rebuild the life he thought he'd lost. On a sunny spring afternoon, the three of them sat on a picnic blanket in the park, laughing as Rusty, Taylor's adopted dog, chased after a frisbee. Dana leaned against her mom, her heart full. "See? I told you," she said with a grin. "Told me what?" Vicky asked, brushing a strand of hair from Dana's face. "That you and Mr. Briggs were perfect for each other," Dana said, her tone smug. Taylor chuckled, reaching over to ruffle her hair. "I think we owe you a big thank you, Dana." "You're welcome," she said brightly, "but you can just call me Cupid." Vicky and Taylor laughed, their hands finding each other's without hesitation. For the first time in a long time, their lives felt whole, a new chapter filled with love, laughter, and the promise of a brighter future. Thank you for listening to our heartwarming tale. We ask that you please and like our channel. Give us a thumb up and subscribe to Green Tea Tales.